Hello, welcome to the Destination Imagination Team Manager Training. You might be wondering what you've gotten yourself into, but as we like to call this training, this will be about the roles of a team manager. I'm Chris Feisel, Director of Training for Destination Imagination.
And I'm Johnny Wells, Director of Education for Destination Imagination. And we want to talk to you probably about some of the most important things that you'll do. One of the things that you're going to discover as a team manager for Destination Imagination is your most important role, and that's the role of life changer. Over the course of the next few months, the times that you spend with these students, one of the things you're going to discover is how much you change the lives of young people. And through this training, we want to help you so that you can be empowered to do just that, to make a difference in young lives, so that they are equipped to face the world. There are several roles that we're going to cover today as roles of the team manager. We're going to be talking about the creativity stimulator, how to help and develop your team members so that they can express their own and their group creativity. We're going to focus a little bit on your role as educator, and that's how you guide students so that they develop some of the skills that are needed to be able to not only work through Destination Imagination, but to take out as skills into the world. And then challenge expert. How do you serve the team best to know and understand the rules and the challenges of Destination Imagination materials?
We're going to talk about interference and how your role is to deflect that within your team, to keep your team safe from outside influence. We're going to talk about Chief Safety Officer. How do you keep your team safe? What are the things you need to do to make that happen? And then one of your other roles is the facilitator, getting those meetings scheduled, getting things set up. And we're going to talk through each one of these as we go through this training.
So let's start with the creativity stimulator, and let's take a look at creativity and the process and see how we can best meet the needs of our team. Our pedagogy is built around and sits on the rails of the creative process. As the creativity stimulator, you need to understand the creative process and how that fits into the many, many things that you're going to watch your team do. Let's step through the process just briefly. The creative process starts with the first stage, which is recognize. To be able to recognize a challenge is pretty much to internalize the challenge. Your team should be able to look at the challenge before them, see all the many challenges and problems that are within that big challenge, and internalize that. The next thing they're going to do is to imagine possible solutions. To be able to actually not go out and look for things that will work in this challenge, but within their own mind's eye, to be able to see possible solutions, to start brainstorming, to start listing, to start looking at the myriad of opportunities there are to put together a solution to the challenge. Keep in mind, as a team, as individuals, imagine they may not necessarily be workable solutions as they are put out there in a brainstorming situation, but they indeed are the stepping stones, the beginning place. So they're going to start imagining possible solutions. Next is the initiate and collaborate. Possibly you will see students beginning as a team to collaborate with each other as they start talking about possible solutions. But collaboration isn't limited just to talking to each other about solutions and components of those solutions. Collaboration also means going out into a larger world, looking online and collaborating with information there, collaborating with research. It can also be experimentation is collaboration, collaborating with material, looking to see what's available and to be able to take in all of that information, to collaborate with materials and information. But along with that, it's going to be the initiate stage, where the team and the individuals actually begin working to take that possible solution and start putting together a tangible, workable plan and solution to be able to use materials. And during that initiate phase, you're also going to see this stage start to unfold. as the team members work, they will constantly be looking at those components. And we are talking about the components of a larger solution to this challenge. As those components are looked at, there's an assessment to see, will they really and truly work within the framework of our challenge solution? Will these pieces do what we want them to do? Will these pieces be successful? Now keep in mind that although this process looks linear, it's actually much more complicated than that. Because as the team begins to initiate, they may discover through assessment that it doesn't work. It doesn't do what they want it to do. And with that, they may need to go back to the recognize phase, or they may need to go back to the imagine stage. So just as the diagram on the right shows with all those swirls and multiple swirls, you're actually cycling back. You're re-looping as you work. So consider the fact, as a team, the whole team together may be looping back, and within that team, there's also 7 individuals possibly looping back at the same time. If you feel like in working in the creative process, you start feeling a little untidy right now, that's okay. That's what the creative process is about. It's about looping back and checking and seeing and re-collaborating and initiating in a different way. That's all okay. It is not a straight, streamlined process. It's a fun process, and that's what makes it fun. Once you've actually gotten all of that put together as a team, once the team has that solution together and they've assessed all those components, comes a bigger evaluation. The bigger evaluation is to step back and look at the whole solution and say, does the solution actually do? Does it actually solve the challenge that we were given? It's checking everything against the rubric and saying we have all of the components and those components are workable. Evaluation is about the big picture and seeing how it fits in and how we as a team fit into that big picture of the solution. But perhaps we need to consider, as we're doing all of these re-loops, that there are going to be celebration points. In our diagram here, celebration appears to be at the very end, that we don't get to celebrate until after we've evaluated. That's not true. Celebration point is just that moment in time when a team member or a team has that excitement about the experimentation and saying, ooh, wouldn't it be great to do this again? Or discovering that one of those components works and stepping back and reflecting on what it took to get to that point. And then the celebration is in a bigger picture too. It's when we take that entire solution, we push it out there to the world, and we say, we want to show you what we've done. And the pride that comes in having that bigger solution out there, that bigger piece. But really, all in all, it's celebrating and reflecting and thinking about where we've started and where we've come to, and how we've changed over that time. Celebration is that feeling of success in a way that has nothing to do with tournament standings and rankings, but about how we as individuals feel about ourselves and how we as individuals feel about our team and what our team has done. So that's a creative process. There's more information about that in the roadmap. One of the things you do need to consider also is types of play. Because as you start thinking about creativity, types of play are very important to growing as a team and developing as a team as you move into looking at solutions. There are different types of play. There's that kind of free play where everything just flows and moves about in such a way. So you want to consider that with the imagination, that free-flowing, that free play time is going to be something that you're going to find it's going to be high on the imagination end. It's going to be high up there. But consider that you're also going to have to move from that flowing sort of freedom and that kind of play to something that's going to move us up into a higher rule-centered area where we're looking at gameplay, because obviously solutions are also bounded by some rules. And so we have to find and show our team how we can move through play to do different sorts of things. Granted, as we get more rules, It becomes more bounded, and with the increase in rules, imagination is going to lessen. But there's a spectrum there whenever you start looking at play. And through play, we bond as a team as well. And that bonding is kind of a halfway point between rules and imagination, and using a halfway point there. I say all that to say that play needs to be considered as the one who's going to stimulate creativity. Use play to the advantage of growing creativity. One of the things as the creativity stimulator, you want to constantly promote and push the team as they continue to look at ways to do what they want to do. And play is a great way to do that. Experimentation. Don't ever underestimate, as someone who is stimulating creativity, the power of experimentation. Remember, with experimentation, failure is an option. And what we need to do is consider using that failure as a springboard for nothing but success. Consider all the great things that have been invented, built, made over the course of history. Failure was a part of that. And don't ever underestimate that failure is an option, but use it. And trial and error. It's about not finding something that's always going to work the first time, and that's part of what failure is about, is we experiment through that. What works, what do we think is work? And we want to be able to test our best theories. We want a team to say, we have an idea. Let's test it and see what happens. We can build a model of it. If we can build a small-scale model of it as a test, we probably could build a big-scale model and a bigger, life-size, functioning version of what we want. So consider those as experimentation. Well, and part of that experimentation is role-playing within the team. And Instant Challenge is a great place to do that. As you work on Instant Challenge skills, consider allowing team members to experiment with different roles. Perhaps it's that one would like to be an actor. They're not really comfortable with being an actor, but Instant Challenge is a great time to say, I'm going to be the actor here. I want to put on the actor's hat and act. Or perhaps it's the student who isn't a designer by nature, innately perhaps, in quick prototyping. But what a great opportunity in Instant Challenge to say, I want to take the lead as the designer here. Try on those different roles. How do they feel? What one may discover, as a team member, one may discover that I actually do function well in different roles. And as the team manager, always consider asking those open-ended questions. That's where you're going to find that it gives freedom to explore different ideas and experiment with different concepts. To give you an example, we wouldn't say, how are you going to nail those two boards together? That's not an open-ended question. There's no experimentation to that at all. That in itself is a closed statement. How are you going to nail them together? Well, I'm going to use the nail. But consider open-ended. How do you plan to attach those two boards together? How do you plan to put those two boards together? That particular open-ended question gives options, and that's what we want. We want the team to look at options. I think the one thing that really and truly sets us apart in the world of destination imagination is the fact that if it doesn't say you can't, you can. As a team member, I need to always go with that philosophy. If it doesn't say I can't, then I can. That kind of thinking is going to move the team forward. It's going to allow them to be able to look at all of the world around them and see everything there as potential, as possibilities. So, experimentation. Consider always letting them experiment, because through experimentation, who knows what we're going to find out there that may spark the creativity and spark a highly creative solution. Another role that we want to consider as a team manager is, what about being the educator? Because as a team manager, there are areas that you're going to want to teach to the team.
One of those areas is teaching teamwork. You are responsible for helping your kids, your team, learn how to work together. It's not easy to do, but think about the advantage that these kids are going to have in their futures if they already know how to figure out how to work with people they're struggling with, or how to work with people they're not liking very much that day. You're going to be giving them a huge gift by teaching them how to be on a team. And your role as you're teaching that teamwork is to stay on the sidelines. You don't get in the middle of the discussions. You don't add your ideas. You don't do those things. You're not a part of the team. You are actually apart from the team. So you are their mentor, their guide. So stay on the outside, and you want to nurture their progress towards their goals. So you really want to focus on what is that team's goal, making sure you understand it and that you're working towards their goals. If your goal is to make first place at the regional tournament, but their goal is to get it done, you need to go with their goal. So your goal, you need to work with teaching them and nurturing them towards their own personal goals. You want them to grow as a team. You want them to learn to trust each other. You want them to learn to care about each other. You want them, most importantly, is to learn to listen to each other. That sometimes is the hardest. When there's ideas going all over the place, kids really get that ownership of those ideas, and it's okay to help them learn to let go of those ideas and listen to their teams. Johnny said earlier to celebrate those successes as they happen. This is probably one of the most important things. Your teams are going to argue, and they're going to have disagreements. And sometimes those disagreements, your job is to keep them from getting destructive. So sometimes those disagreements run down that path, and you have every right at that moment to stop the discussion and move the kids on to something else. But sometimes the hardest thing they're ever going to have to decide is which challenge are they doing. And it can take a couple meetings for this to happen. So you may need to celebrate. Once they've all come to a consensus and you've had team members who gave up something and team members who didn't participate but finally did agree, you need to celebrate that excitement that happened, that they accomplished that goal of choosing a challenge, making their team name, all of those things, deciding what one character is going to be. Celebrate those things as they happen. And your ultimate goal is teach the team to guide and coach themselves. You want them to be able to handle conflict in a constructive manner without feelings hurt and without tears in the corner. You are the role model to have that happen. There are really good, more in-depth resources in Roadmap on pages 14 and 15, and there is also right in there team building for students that you can click on, and that will give you some good ideas.
Along with teamwork, you can also teach how to use tools. Now, there are different types of tools. There are those tools like idea generation, focusing tools. Those tools are how to solve a problem, how to take a problem, break it down, bring ideas, how to focus in on which idea might be the best one for this particular situation. Those tools are tools that you need to teach, because those are tools that kind of structure thinking, and as a team, it brings them together in a more focused way. So consider teaching problem-solving tools. You're going to find some of those tools in Roadmap. They are explained to you. There are activities to go along with those, and they're scattered on several pages in there. So please look to the Roadmap to check out some of those problem-solving tools and how they would work. You're going to find that some problem-solving tools are better suited to the age of the team, or perhaps just simply to the personality type of the team. So consider that. Not only are we talking about tools like skills for generating, we're also talking about tools like hand tools and electric tools. They're totally within the purview of the team manager to teach skills like how to use tools. One of the things that some of our team managers consider is the age of children. Perhaps students are too young to use electric tools, then let's go with hand tools. To be able to use tools is going to be a leg up for some of the teams, to be able to build and to do and to construct. One of the things also when you consider teaching tools and the use of tools is it builds confidence among individuals as well. To be able to say, look what I've learned to do. Look what I can do with my hands. Well, we do want to consider safety, and we're going to talk about that a little later. So when you're just talking about, do I teach hand tools or do I teach electric tools, you have to consider the safety in that. You have to consider the age in that, and you have to consider what's appropriate for the individual student. But remember, there are a lot of ways for you to teach tools even if you don't know how. We'd suggest that you consider resources within the parents. What do they know how to teach as far as tool use? There are also all sorts of classes out there at your local hardware stores, some of your craft centers that would allow for teaching classes in how to use some of those tools. So when we talk about being an educator, it isn't always about you specifically having to teach those tools and how to use them. Sometimes it's finding resources of others in your community that you can bring in to teach them how to use those tools.
And you are allowed to teach construction, and construction is really making anything. You can teach kids to sew. You can teach them how to use duct tape. You can teach them how to paint. You can teach them the overall ways that sets are built. You can expose them to all the different kinds of sets that happen on stage. You can teach them how to make anything, but they have to actually make it for their solution. And if you look at this, all these different materials in this picture are fascinating to me. The backdrop is actually paper bags, unfolded paper bags that they've picked up and stuck onto probably cardboard or PVC pipe or something to make that really cool cave-like background. They have feathers on costumes. They have glitter on costumes. They have a huge dragon head that looks like it's made out of cardboard. You can show your teams pictures of what other teams have done. You can show videos of what the other kids have done. You can teach them at school skills that they need to know to be able to do this kind of thing. But as we'll get into a little bit later, they have to do it. You can't give them ideas. You can't give them anything like that. And you can't do any of the stuff that shows up on stage. But you can teach them to make anything.
One of the best places to teach is Instant Challenge. And teaching through Instant Challenge, there are a couple of things. Mainly you want to teach Instant Challenge. And within Instant Challenges, that's that time when in a very short, condensed period, it is looking at a challenge and a problem in a short span of time and finding a solution in a short span of time. Instant Challenges will help particularly with teamwork, because in a short span of time, you can get the entire creative process cycle in, and you can also get an entire cycle in of teamwork and how the team pulls together to make something happen within 8 minutes. It's also a great time to teach roles, because you can step in and show someone as a team member how to be a leader, how to step in and express oneself and be a communicator, how to look at rules and to watch the rules as the team is building. One of the things you're going to be able to show students is how, and as a team, they're testing that thinking that they have. And energy soars whenever Instant Challenges are put out there. You want to show teams that working through the entire creative process energizes, because that's what creativity does. Creativity is an energizer. And to be able to show them that and what that feels like, Instant Challenge does that. So during that time when all that's happening, what can you do? Well, you can certainly teach skills during that time. There are skills like performance skills. They need to know things like, what does it look like to have a good performance? Speaking up, audibility, face, being able to look to the audience so that the face shows, being able to stand on your own 2 feet without swaying back and forth. Elementary sort of presentation skills. It's a great place to teach some of those skills. And you can also look at areas that are struggling in a performance. If they're struggling with performances in Instant Challenge, it's a good time to do the same thing again and again. Even do the same challenge from time to time, just to see if we are progressing in that. You can even demonstrate solutions. If it's about building a tower, use the materials. Demonstrate for them how you would go about using particular techniques that would make things stronger, longer, more sturdy. You can demonstrate those. That's totally within what the realm of the team manager can do. But the thing you have to consider is practice, and then you need to practice some more. One of the things you might consider is starting every team meeting with an instant challenge. Maybe even end with an instant challenge as well. Since we know that it energizes teams, instant challenge is a great way at the beginning of that meeting to get the energy up, the thinking up, the teamwork up, to push them on through the rest of the meeting. Instant challenge, there's lots of things to find about it. There are many instant challenges in the roadmap. There are IC practice kits that are available in the resource area. Even online, if you look for free instant challenges, they're out there. Great websites like Creativity Catapult is a great place to look for as a resource for more instant challenges. So whenever you start as an educator, consider the power of teaching instant challenge.
One of the other areas that you'll get to teach as a team manager is project management. And project management is becoming a big buzzword in industry. They want kids to know how to do it, but it's also happening in the classroom. They're really working on teaching students and teachers how to define a problem, how to plan, how to go about doing it, and how to review it. In fact, the Project Management Institute, who is one of our sponsors, has taken that grown-up Project Management Institute requirements, which has like 10, I think, different things people need to know, and then it has subcategories underneath. They've defined it down to use in education to these 4: defining, planning, doing, and reviewing. And our creative process lines up with those process groups, those project management process groups quite well. And when you look at the roadmap, there are actual project management worksheets that you and your team can do to help them actually put their plans into process. In my experience as a team manager, especially early on, a lot of times there was no plan. We kind of just had an idea and started building, and we didn't really spend the time defining, and we didn't really spend the time planning, because sometimes that can be a little boring for the kids. You know, they want to start building, they want to start doing things. So as you think about all the different projects that are actually in one Destination Imagination Challenge, you might have the kids pick 2 that they want to start solving right away, have them go through the process of the recognize, imagine, initiate, and collaborate, and assess on those 2 things, see then how they fit into everything else, and then move on to something else, rather than doing all your planning up front and then all your defining up front. Because older kids, they can do that because they want to see the big picture and make the plan, divide and conquer, get the work done. But little kids, younger kids, are really going to want to get started. So have them pick a couple things that they want to work on out of the challenge, and then walk them through this process. Now that they've actually started building something, then they're going to be able to go back and spend the time to define and plan the entire rest of the project. There is a lot of information in our roadmap. You can see the numbers across the bottom of this slide, the page numbers. A lot of information about that, but there is also at the Project Management Institute Education Foundation many, many, many more resources that will help you help your team learn to be project managers. Your next role is you are the expert on the challenge. In Destination Imagination, we have something called Challenge Masters. We have regional Challenge Masters for the local tournaments, affiliate Challenge Masters, and international Challenge Masters. They are our experts as the organization on the challenge, but you get to be your team's challenge expert. So one of the things you get to do is ensure understanding. You need to make sure you understand that challenge better than anybody else on the team. That means you need to read it 5 or 6 times. Talk to your affiliate director or your local challenge master if you have questions. Make sure you understand the challenge. At the beginning, you know, the team's not going to know which challenge they want. There's 6 for them to choose from. So with those 6, you're going to need to at least cursorily read them at least once so you can answer the kids' questions about those challenges. Once they've chosen one, that's when you have to get in and really understand the challenge completely. There's also a document called the Rules of the Road, and that is our overall rules. And it is important for you to have at least read it once. It is, when you've used the electronic version, it is searchable. So you can put in, you know, Control F, find, and put in, I'm looking for information on expense report, and it'll pull that stuff up for you so you can find it more easily. So if you kids have a question about whether this is allowed, you can definitely refer back to the Rules of the Road. You can go to the electronic version, click in, type in the words the kids are curious about, and see what you find. But it is your responsibility to make sure they're following the Rules of the Road. One rule that sometimes gets broken is that kids have to wear shoes, hard-soled shoes all the time on stage. And it's your responsibility to know that that is a requirement. We also have something that's unique to Destination Imagination, and that's clarifications. We give, our challenges go through pretty significant editing processes and review processes, and they look at every different part, but you know, still every once in a while, kids are smarter than all the rest of us, I firmly believe. They come up with something that we missed, or they ask a question that isn't really answered well in the solution, in the challenge. So in that case, if it's something that actually affects the challenge, we will submit and publish a public clarification. This says that this rule happens, and this rule supersedes all the rest of the rules. Then there's private clarification. So if your team has a question specifically about their solution, they can talk to the International Challenge Masters through our clarifications process and get an answer to that question. They can do up to 10, and there's more information about that in the Rules of the Road and the challenges, and actually on our website. There's a section on our website that has clarifications in it. So I've told you lots of times that you really have to read a challenge, and you need to read it more than once. And I'm going to give you some hints on how to read that challenge. This slide gives you some directions. This is also on page 42 in the roadmap. But the best way to do it is to use highlighters and then highlight everything that has, every sentence that has the word must in it. And I said in yellow, but you can do in whatever color you want as long as you're doing it in different colors. So highlight everything that's the word must. Then highlight in a different color every sentence that has the word will in it. Then circle all the sentences that contain may not, will not, can't, won't, no, not. Anything that says they can't do this, circle all of those sentences. Then highlight all sentences that include the word points, and do that again in yet another color. And then highlight all sentences that include the word may in green or another color. So once you have that all highlighted, the items that are circled or highlighted in yellow and pink, or must and will, are the rules the team must follow to solve this challenge. So you'll notice in the engineering challenge that the height of the structure has to be a certain, the structure has to be a certain height, and it'll say between X inches and Y inches. Your structure must fit into that. If it doesn't, it's not going to count. So those are the rules that your team has to follow. All the things in blue and green, or that are points or may, are the areas where your team has the opportunity to decide what they want to do, what creativity they want to do, how many decisions can they make, how creative do they want to be. They get to decide, and how much work do they want to do to solve that challenge. Those are the areas where your team gets it. So I would suggest checking this in the roadmap, but also read it again, and then 2 months in, 2 weeks in, read it again. And just read it throughout the whole season to make sure no one has missed anything. You're also going to want your teams to read it, especially as they get older. 3rd and 4th graders, this is a lot of reading, and it can be kind of difficult. 6th and 7th and 8th graders should be reading the challenge often and on their own and bringing questions to you about the challenge.
With all of this interaction with the team that we've been talking about, this particular role becomes a big one for you. Interference deflector. How do you work as a team manager doing all the things we've talked about and all the roles that we've presented so far and still make sure that there is no interference involved with the team? So let's talk about the first thing. What is interference? I think we probably need a definition for that. So one of the things you have to consider is that only team members are the ones that contribute ideas and create the team challenge solution and the team choice element. Only team members. What that means is if there are any ideas, any solutions, any hands-on assistance from anyone that is not a team member, and that would include you as the team manager. Remember, if you're not a team member, that would be interference. Notice the diagram here. We want to consider the fact that anything that goes into the solution that is not done by the team is going to be interference. So what is not interference then? Well, there are a couple of things that we're going to look at that's not interference. First of all, teaching is not interference. Remember what we talked about, that part of your role is an educator? You're going to be able to teach them certain things, skills that they would want to know. Consider the fact, though, we teach skills that the team has chosen to know. This is not where you as a team manager step in and say, I have to teach you this skill because without the skill you can't do this. Again, we're talking about skills that are identified by the team, but you can teach those skills. There is nothing wrong with you teaching those skills, as long as in teaching those skills, you're not working on or contributing to part of the solution as far as actually building part of that solution. The next thing is safety. Safety is certainly not interference. Your role is, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, is going to be Chief Safety Officer. But we don't want anything dangerous happening where there's going to be safety that's going to step in. Just say no. If it's a safety issue and it's dangerous and someone's going to get hurt, it is not interference at that time. Now, there are times that they want to do something as a team, and it is a danger to the team. You step in and tell them no on that, but you always need to be sure and say, can you tell me another way? Can you tell me another way that you could achieve this same thing perhaps without having to go the dangerous route to get there? You will not suggest something to them, a different method, a different approach, because that would be interference. But certainly it's not interference when you step in and you just simply say we're not doing that because it is too dangerous. Challenge support is not interference. Remember your role as challenge expert? It is your job to ensure that the team understands what's going on in the challenge and what the rules of the road are. So you need to be able to step in and help them understand the challenge. Again, providing support to the challenge does not mean that you provide answers that are going to lead the team to a certain idea or to a solution. That would be considered interference. But certainly it is permissible for you to step in as the challenge expert and help them to understand what's being said in the challenge and to help them know what the rules of the road are. No one would want a team to be in the dark where the challenge was concerned. So what is interference? Well, interference in a nutshell is putting your ideas or a parent's ideas or any non-team member's ideas into the solution. So you must guard against adding ideas from any place other than the team. Obviously, you understand that interference is going to be when you step in and you do something hands-on in the solution, where you step in and you use your skills and your talents as part of what the team is wanting to do. You cut the wood, or you sew a costume, or you paint. And you may think that the team is too young, and so you feel a need to step in and get the work done to make it look better. That's interference. Maybe you're running a little short on time, and you're thinking, oh, they have the idea, and they could do this, but because of time, I'm going to step in and just make it go a little faster. That is interference. So that tangible, put hands on sorts of stuff is going to be interference. What about when something breaks? The team's made it and it breaks. Well, you fixing it even when it breaks, that's interference. Even if you broke it, you may find that there are times that you accidentally break something, moving it, putting things away, whatever, transporting. It's still going to be the team's job to fix it, because for you to fix it would be interference. And there are times that as an adult, you're keeping things not open-ended at all, but very closed off with the way you question. And those questions, and the purpose of those questions, was to lead the team to a particular solution or idea. Well, that's interference. You're not to lead the team down a particular path to a given solution or a given idea. You know, one of the things that I've discovered over the years is that if the team's solution looks like I imagined it from the beginning, then I probably had some sort of interference in there to get them to that place to where it looks exactly the way I thought it should look. That's not to say, though, that as they start working and building, I don't start seeing it through their eyes. Because seeing it through their eyes and listening to their goals is going to be a way for me to avoid interference. So keep in mind, everything must be done by the team, thought up by the team, and put out there by the team if it's going to be a no interference situation. Always deflect that bad, ugly interference, because there's nothing better than to do it yourself.
So Johnny mentioned in the interference talk, one of your roles is Chief Safety Officer. And the team safety is totally 100% your responsibility. We have a couple of things to help you keep that. We do have a volunteer code of conduct that talks about that we won't interfere, that we will abide in the good, best practices of the children, and all these other things about being a volunteer in Destination Imagination. And it does need to be, it's required to be signed. When you go to look at your materials online or order your materials in the resource area, the first time you're in the resource area, it will ask you to sign the electronic version of the Volunteer Code of Conduct. Anyone who is a team manager, co-team manager, needs to make sure they sign this, and it's just to keep all of us safe and on the same page with how our volunteer conduct should be. And then we have some suggestions for keeping the children safe, but it's also for keeping you protected. You know, there's things that have happened in our in the world right now that we definitely need to protect both sides of a relationship. So one of the things, Johnny talked about tools. If it's not safe, you can say no. So you can work to establish tool use protocols. Whatever works in your basement, your living room, your classroom, or gym, or wherever you are doing your team meetings, you need to get some tool use protocols. That means that, you know, kids don't use the electric tools unless a grown-up is around, or don't use any tools at all unless one of the team managers or a grown-up is around. You teach them how to use the tools safely. You have a rule, some teams have a rule that every person who's standing around the saw, you have to see both hands at all moments, so no one's fingers accidentally get in the way. So you can think about what are those ways that's going to make you feel comfortable for your kids to be using those tools, and then establish those. And I suggest writing them down on a big poster board and sticking them on the wall at your meeting, so the kids always know, and reminding them at the beginning of every meeting what those tool use protocols are. We suggest having at least 2 team members at all meetings. Don't meet with a kid not your own on a one-on-one basis. Also, to prevent interference, it's actually best if you always have 2, or even the suggestion of interference. You always have 2 team members working. That way, you don't think that, you're feeding the ideas to the kids and keeping that interference deflected in that situation. So have those 2 team members at all meetings. When driving kids places, have at least 2 team members with you, and please no texting or phone calls, and that applies to every time you drive anywhere because we want you to stay around and be with us. So always have at least 2 team members with you when you're driving. We suggest if you are meeting in a home, having homeowners or renters insurance, and if you're transporting the kids, having automobile insurance. That keeps you safe should anything happen. We also suggest getting permission slips signed by the parents for transportation and tools use. This is basically letting the world know that you are going to be transporting their kids to Home Depot or to the library or to the museum or wherever they need to go, and that they're going to be using tools in your house. And then know and follow your school or organization policy for adult and student interactions. This is a program that often, not all the times, but often is established through a school. So you need to make sure you are following those rules that are in your school. And those vary from school to school, so I can't even give you an idea, but I would definitely talk to whoever is helping coordinate this at your school and making sure that you're following those rules. And then one safety thing that's out there pretty strongly is to let the grown-ups and the parents show up whenever they want to a meeting. And you need to help them with their boundaries because they can't interfere, they can't give ideas, they need to step back, they should not be rescuing their children from constructive conflict. They need to stay out of the meeting, but they need to have the right to walk in and observe the meeting anytime they want to. This also keeps everybody safe. And usually, in my experience, once the team's established for a while, they don't hardly bother to show up to parent meetings, but they'll come for the first couple times, they see you're safe, they see you're comfortable, and then they'll leave you alone. So definitely let the parents know that they can come observe anytime they want to, and that helps engender that feeling of safety.
Okay, so now your role as a facilitator. There are certain things that as a facilitator you're going to do that is going to push along and keep them moving. One of the things that you're going to need is you're going to need a meeting space. You're going to need to find a place that you can meet, and the team needs to be able to meet comfortably there. We're talking about climate as far as heating and cooling. We're talking about storage. We're talking about work tables, spaces to work, those sorts of things that are needed for a meeting space to where they can spread out and work on things. You're also, as a facilitator, going to need to be sure that the team member has been purchased and that you've acquired the materials. That would be the challenge materials, that would be rules of the road, roadmap, all those materials that you're going to need to be able to look at the challenges and to be able to start thinking about a possible solution. You're also going to need to set some sort of schedule. When's the meeting going to occur? You're going to need a place, and then you're going to need a time. You probably need to work with the team members and the team members' parents so that you get some idea of what's going to be a good time for nearly everyone. But you're going to have to remember it has to fit the team manager's schedule. You never want to set a schedule that you're not going to be able to make every time. So be sure that it does fit your schedule so that you can be the facilitator, to be there to open the buildings, to be able to have the meeting space available. You want to also, as you're working with these students, as they plan, as they build on this solution, take notes, take pictures. One of the things that you would like to do is document the process from the beginning to the end. We've talked about celebration several times. Nothing creates a more celebratory atmosphere than for a group to be able to sit down and go back through and look at where they came from when they get to the end, looking at those pictures, looking at those notes. But even in that, even before you get to the celebration phase, there are times that to be able to have notes and pictures, it's good documentation that team members can go back to and pick up on a process or somewhere that they were to be able to improve the solution as they build on it. You're also going to need to be sure, as you work with the team members, that you set an agenda for every meeting. Meetings need planning. We don't go into meetings without knowing what's going to happen during that time frame. Take the length of time you have, plan an agenda. What kind of activities are going to be happening? Are you opening with an instant challenge? And are you closing the meeting with a debriefing? Create the agenda, write it down. Allow the team members to help with that. One of the things that works well is at the end of a meeting, creating the agenda for the next meeting, allowing the team members to have the input to say, here's what we need to work on. Here are the things that we need to emphasize the next time that we didn't get around to this time. As the facilitator, communication with parents is a must. Parents need to stay in the loop with everything. Send that calendar for the entire season home to the parents. Send home anything that needs to be signed and get it signed and get it back, and be sure that parents understand what's going on with the team. As you start looking and working with the parents, consider how you're going to be able to coordinate those parents perhaps into helping even. Parents are a great resource for volunteers whenever you're needing some help with instant challenges. Perhaps what you could do is send home instant challenges and ask them to put together instant challenge stacks, to where in every stack there's a different instant challenge with a printed challenge in it. And so all you have to do every meeting is just pick up an instant challenge stack, open it, and you're ready to roll with an instant challenge experience. What about snacks? Healthy snacks. Because one of the things you're going to discover, particularly if it's after school hours, teens need snacks. And what a better way to have a parent involvement than to have snacks taken care of, knowing that one of the things as a facilitator you don't have to bring for that meeting is snacks. And what you're going to discover also is that with a lot of your tournaments are run by volunteers, and teams need to help supply those volunteers. So as you start talking to your parents, go ahead, line them up as tournament volunteers if need be. And if the parents can't work as volunteers, ask the parents to help you find those volunteers. Again, it's about facilitating as you move forward in your season. You're also going to need to be sure that as you look to that deadline date, that tournament or that showcase, how are you going to get everybody there, all the team members, all the props? That's part of the facilitation, to be sure you have transportation taken care of. Or perhaps that organization has to do with meals for that day or entertainment for that day where you're not going to be in front of the tournament officials. So organizing that tournament showcase attendance is going to be something you're going to need to think about. And think about it in advance, because the further out you plan and start thinking about it, the less stress you're going to have as you get close to that showcase time or that tournament time. As a facilitator, celebrate those successes. The facilitator should be the one that's helping to point out all of those times that things have just happened that were right for the team. Things, and when I say things happen that were right for the team, consider failure in that too. There are times in that failure that we need to celebrate the successes that came out of what first perceived to be a failure, because we're going to look to see how we're going to use that particular opportunity to grow as individuals and as a group. Our ultimate goal in all of this as a facilitator, we want to teach the team how to manage themselves. We want the team to be self-sufficient. We want them to understand what it's like and what it feels like to stand on their own feet as a team and on their own feet as individuals. So as a facilitator, our ultimate goal is to make them to where they're independent, because there's nothing that is more rewarding than to know that you have grown a group of students to where they don't have to worry about having someone standing at their elbow all the time to solve a problem. They don't have to have someone standing at their elbow to attack the next challenge. So that's our ultimate goal. Well, Whenever we think about keeping them moving, there is one thing that is an absolute must in all of this. Have fun. And I don't mean bring fun just to the kids. I mean bring fun to yourself. You're going to embark upon a journey that can be filled with fun. Is it going to be frustrating at times? Sure. Is it going to be hairy at times? Sure. But the bottom line is, it's going to be fun. And as you start looking at and thinking about how am I going to spend my next few months, how am I going to spend those team meetings? I'm going to spend them in fun, because fun is a key element for what you want to do, and you want to teach a team of youngsters how much fun it can be. I've come back to your most important role, though. Your most important role is to be a life changer. We can talk all we want to about teaching and teaching and teaching, but the bottom line, it's about opening up the lives that you're working with so that they're changed. You want to awaken in these team members what's innately there: the sense of wonder, the sense of curiosity, the sense of wanting to find a challenge, no matter how big, no matter how small, and attacking it and enjoying the journey that solving a challenge can bring. Well, yeah, it's the best thing that you can do for a child's education. Remember that. And get out there, take hold, and let's make this season happen. We appreciate you being with us, and if you have any questions, please contact someone at Destination Imagination, either at our offices or perhaps at your affiliate or regional level, because they're there to help you. Let's go for it. It's been a pleasure being with you, and we look forward to the lives that you change.
Have a great season. Thank you.